Pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Matthew McDougall, who is the founder and CEO of Digital Jungle. Matthew grew up between Australia and New Zealand, and then in his late teens ventured offshore for his overseas university studies. After 23 years in the internet technology space and digital marketing areas, he boasts over 10 years experience in China and also in Australia, UK, US and Japan. He founded this cross-digital, cultural digital marketing agency in China called Digital Jungle 6 years ago. This provides Western companies with China language digital marketing services, targeting Chinese living in China and abroad. He's also the editor of the Digital Marketing Circle, a blog on digital marketing, and author of the Chinese Social Media Universe. Welcome, Dr. McDougall, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Hi guys, so if you're standing up, just please come forward, find a chair. I've got 30 minutes to tell you everything about China. And no tough questions until at least the end. So I sound a bit like an Australian-American English person, but I grew up in a little town called Nelson, ventured off overseas and did a PhD in mathematics. So it just goes to prove that apple growers can count, which is a good thing. And so what I'm going to talk about today, and it's a little bit of a different perspective, is what's the Chinese internet look like? What's that social media stuff that people talk about in China? So I'm going to give you a bit of a flavour. But before I do, who in the room knows WeChat, Weibo? Are these familiar names? Oh, fantastic. Okay, so after this, guys, we become WeChat friends. Okay. So look, 2 seconds on who I am. So as you've heard, I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. I've been in China 13 years now. And when I first ventured into China, there was no such thing as digital marketing. So I work with people like Robin Lee and Eric Scher with Baidu to do some pretty cool stuff. Fast forward now where we are, and China's the most exciting country in the planet doing digital marketing. And some of the stuff we're doing is very innovative, very cool. So I'll talk about that. That's the sales stuff out the way. What do? We do anything, and particularly in this market, New Zealand, we do a lot of stuff with market entry. So people come to us saying, how do I work with Chinese? It's difficult. I don't know how to talk to them. I don't really understand my target audience, my consumer. So we will work with brands in New Zealand to help them understand who their audience is, what are the strategies for market entry, be it talking to Chinese in New Zealand or talking to Chinese in China. And then we take them through a brand strategy right through to helping them execute and market with e-commerce solutions. So we do a lot of stuff, but it's around marketing and solutions in that respect. Okay, so the Chinese digital marketing landscape is different. We have different platforms, and I'm going to talk to you about China because it astounds me when I first talk about China. A lot of Kiwi companies think about China as a single market. They think, I'm going to have a China strategy. Well, good luck with that. Because China is a lot of different provinces. It's a lot of different languages. My wife's from Dongbei, from North China, and the type of, yeah, everyone's saying, oh, you got me. But the type of traditions and cultures that we had at Chinese New Year in Gornian were very different to the type of cultures and stuff my friends had in Shanghai or Guangzhou. So for Kiwi brands and businesses looking to go into China, you've got to come to some real truths. You're probably not going to have a China strategy. You're probably going to have a regional China strategy. So therefore you need to understand, well, what makes sense for me in terms of that strategy. So I've given you a couple of points. So when I look at China, I look at sort of 7 broad areas, which you can see. The other thing which you may or may not know is that in China we talk about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. All the Chinese saying, of course you do. Right? But for Kiwis, that's an unusual concept. Okay, so be familiar with the way we talk about populations. Be familiar with the way we categorise populations. It's quite different. Now, some quick facts, some fast facts. There's no questions at the end, so feel free to take this down. But China has a large population, over 1.4 billion, half of which are now online. And that growth online has occurred in the last 5 to 10 years. So it's rapid adoption of internet. And if you just look at the rural to urban mix, So what's really interesting is the government in China has invested a lot of infrastructure in the rural context. So for the guys living out in the countryside, sometimes their internet is faster than some of the tier 2 cities. Amazing. And that has implications because if you're doing a rich media campaign with video, well then actually the folks in Shanghai, well the Shanghai's okay, but some of the tier 2 cities will actually have a worse experience than some of the tier 4 cities because infrastructure is different. Just something to be thinking about. Social media, oh my God, nothing like it in the planet. Okay, so if you are going to participate in a serious way in China, you absolutely must have a social strategy. Okay, and that's just, I can go through lots of details, but absolutely you must have one. Everybody participates in social media. And interestingly, social media is the second most trusted source after family and friends, physical people. Social media is where people go to get information and they trust it. Okay, so that's a pretty interesting concept. Here we're all very cynical. And the other really cool thing is the mobile internet. Almost everybody accesses the internet in China via a mobile device. So I get a lot of brands come to me saying, oh, we just translated our website, we've ticked that box, we're all good. Then I say, well, is it responsive? Oh, nope. Well, it doesn't matter, it's invisible then. If it's not a responsive website in Chinese, you might as well save your money. Okay. What do people do? Okay, so if you look, what those Chinese folks are doing, they're online gossiping. Okay, mostly. They're, just go to a restaurant in Auckland where there's Chinese and see what happens first before they eat. Click, 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 right? Yeah, everyone's looking down now, right? Yeah, because it's a sharing experience. Because Chinese love to share, both good and bad stuff. Okay, so for brands, that could be a double-edged sword. Because if you have a great experience, people know about it. If you have a terrible experience, people know about it. Okay, so just have a look what people are doing. So searching, talking, getting news, doing music, all that sort of stuff, very, very popular. Entertainment. Just talk to Chinese about what's happening in the gossip, in the entertainment world, or the pop stars. They'll tell you everything. Okay, it's very topical. We've talked about this. So mobile is hugely important, but what do people do on mobile? Well, again, on mobile, they're using instant messaging. We used to talk about QQ. Now we talk mostly about Weixin, WeChat. Okay, so that's mostly what people are doing. When we talk about search, we talk about this thing called Baidu. Now, a lot of folks already know that Google's had a pretty hard time in China. You try to do a Google search out of Beijing, impossible. You try access Facebook, Twitter, impossible. So there's a whole new ecosystem. There's a whole bunch of new platforms that you'll have to familiarise yourself with if you want to participate in that market. Okay, so again, all the channels are there, channels that you'll be familiar with, it's just there's different players, different names. Top social brands, probably the one I'm most excited about is Tencent's WeChat. Lots of very good ideas why. It's probably the most innovative technology platform in the planet. And now we've got companies like Facebook starting to copy ideas. It's such a nice feeling because we're accused, the Chinese technology companies were accused of stealing, or not stealing, that's probably not the right word, of adopting the best of Western platforms. And now it's a little bit on the other hand. So very exciting stuff. So if you're not playing with WeChat, don't be intimidated. You can do it in English. It's worth having a play if you want to use that to talk to your Chinese consumers. In fact, I blog in English, and I've built up a bit of a following because Chinese like to practice their English. So it's a great thing. So you can differentiate yourself even with English. The other one people talk about is Weibo, and people say, oh, Weibo's dead. Come on. So what happened, Weibo, which was a real Twitter clone back in 2009, was hot around 2012, 2013. Everyone was talking about it. Then 2014, 2015 came around and it died. Everyone said, oh, who wants it? It's come back. Okay, so one of the fastest rates of Weibo acquisition was last year. So it went up, went down, it's coming back up again. So don't listen to people who said, oh, Weibo's dead, it's all WeChat. It's actually both, because you use them in very different ways. They're actually complementary. So if someone's trying to tell you what's your social strategy for China and they're trying to convince you it's a WeChat-led only WeChat program, be skeptical. It's actually both. And you use them in different ways. Okay, they're complementary. That's my main takeaway there. There's a couple of things called Renren and Dolban to a lot of extent, a bit like what we used to think about MySpace. It was popular and cool for a while, and where did it go? Okay, same sort of things. These things are dropping right off the network. The point to that is the fact that you invest a lot of money in building a brand around a certain tribe living on a platform. That tribe may move, so just be cognizant of that. So WeChat and Weibo are very hot today. MySpace was hot once before too. So think about your strategies in that context. Some interesting facts, particularly around Weibo. Almost 300 million people. That's a lot of people, right? And when you look at WeChat, around 600 million, that's a lot of people too. So the point to this is you can't just target everybody. So in New Zealand, where you have 4 million people or so, and there's a small percentage of that online, you can treat them as one segment. In China, you can't. Even when you think about, okay, North China, South China, Central China, all of those things are just geographic segmentation. In Beijing, we have 9 categories of persona, which basically means we group people by persona, and in that one city, 9 different personas. And they can be from luxury buyer to lifestyle buyer and a whole lot of things. So if you're marketing to Chinese, you've got a lot of considerations. Alternatively, you have a lot of money, okay, which most people don't. WeChat, lots of cool stuff here. WeChat sort of came about and was pretty much a communication platform. But if anyone's been to China recently, you don't need to carry money. Like I can get a taxi, I can buy a pizza, too many pizzas. I can buy lots of product and never pull my wallet out except pay through WePay or WeChat. So that's revolutionising the way that people go about their business in China. The exchange of hongbao, red envelopes, okay? All done by WeChat. You can start shifting money around. WeShops, basically to do e-commerce in a very lightweight way, can be done through Tencent's WePay now. A lot of very cool stuff. And it's too much to talk about in that area, but just the takeaway is explore that as a platform, measure your approach to the investment, but it's clearly something that should be considered. Okay, social media is changing the ways we do business, absolutely without question. It's a real problem, I think, for the Chinese government, the social media stuff. And to that extent, you see a lot of content considerations, would be the way to put it. So you would write things in a certain way because you don't want to upset certain folks. So there's a lot of content considerations in the way you write things. And in fact, there was a law passed in Beijing around opulence and what you couldn't do regarding this term opulence, which is a pretty hard thing to define. So you've got to have content decisions about what would be deemed to be correct or inappropriate. Just lots of stuff. We talk about video sharing, Youku, Tudao, that's the sort of more traditional platforms, but WeChat also has video, as does other platforms. Key opinion leaders. So in the West, we tend to talk about that as influence marketing. Okay, now people say, Matt, is this KOL thing, this key opinion leader thing important? Absolutely. So if there's a couple of takeaways today, use WeChat. Next takeaway, use a KOL. And a KOL, between you and I, is like paid media. You find someone with a lot of followers and influence over others, hopefully disproportionately greater. You pay them some money and they say nice things. And that's a model that's worked pretty well in the West for a while. In China, it's like that on steroids. Because people in China believe what people say. And particularly if that person is a movie star or a sports star or someone with celebrity, then it means much more. Because people listen to what they make in terms of brand endorsements. If that person said that brand endorsement was true, my God, it must be. Okay, so it means a lot. Now that will change over time as sophistication in marketing changes, but right now it's absolutely critical you have a KOL strategy. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get the celebrity like Lina and tennis. You can use grassroots who have a more local following, but the important point is having a strategy in that area. The other thing which is interesting and something to be considered is video. As a storytelling form is much more important than ever before. So when we talk to our clients about getting your brand story out, getting your message out to the market, incorporate video much more than you probably would in this market because it means a lot more for people to watch. Just think about in a tier 1 city, it takes about an hour and a half for someone to get to the office. right? So what do? They sit on the subway and they watch TV, right? They WeChat to everybody. So if you can hook into that sort of behaviour, then you can leverage that opportunity. I've put this up more for if people are interested in this space, just come and see me after the presentation. I'm happy to give you the presentation. This helps you understand what types of content make sense for the sort of outcome you want. So if I'm a brand looking just to get awareness, well, there's different content types that make more sense. If I'm a brand that's looking for an action, like a sale or something, well, there's going to be different types of content. I put this in here because it seems to help people understand that content is not just content. There's different forms, different mediums and stuff you'd use, so you can use that for your own information. I just love this platform. I put this in here because I just think that you've got to look at what WeChat is in a bit more detail, particularly folks looking to do cross-border e-commerce or looking at brand awareness. WeChat has a number of things. There's apps, and just recently Tencent came out and said, we're creating this environment of mini apps. Okay, now that's going to shake up the tree a bit, because right now, a bit like Apple, you can download apps onto your phone. Tencent has this idea that you can create apps within the Tencent environment. So you don't need to go and get an app for a booking engine or something on a Android or Apple phone. You can actually, within the Tencent environment, download these functional components into your WeChat accounts. So what they're trying to do is keep everyone in Tencent, in WeChat. Okay, so look, it's 3 weeks old, it's new to the market, but it's going to be something I think is going to be super important for people not to have to reinvent an Android app or an Apple app, because if they've got WeChat, they can do it all within that one environment. This thing called a WeChat shop. So anyone doing e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce? Yeah, a few of you guys. So an alternative channel. So you can go and do Tmall, you can go and do Taobao, you can go and do JD. There's a bunch of platforms that you may want to leverage. Alternatively, you can create your own e-shop very simply on your WeChat app. And what's happened, there's a term called McDougall, most people would be familiar with that to speak Chinese. Chinese who come here as students or whatever, they go into, I think, pack and save, buy the milk formula, the supplements, and send it back to their friends, family, and agents back in China. And that's become a real buying power. So a lot of those sales in the McDougall environment are made through WeChat, because people said, oh, I'll set up a store, I'll market my latest Blackmores on that store, and I'm going to make some money on that. And that group has become hugely important to brands. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of the brands who come to us get complete sticker shock when I say how much it's going to cost you to build a new brand in that market. I can tell you there's a lot of shocked people, because it's not cheap. So one of the strategies that I would encourage you to consider is the fact you use the McDougall, the Chinese community in this market, to use your brand, talk about your brand, and then try and sell it for you back into China. It's not a strategy I'd use for everybody, but for certain brands, it makes much more sense to use your McDougall community in New Zealand to help amplify and build your brand in New Zealand, and then phase 2, start to establish yourself directly in that market. Okay, so just something to consider as a takeaway. WePay, again, it's almost, I think it's the 4th or 5th largest bank in the world now, Tencent. Who would know that? Okay, so what they've done is they've created this ability to link accounts, link credit cards into the Tencent environment called WePay. And like I said before, in Beijing, you don't need to use cash now. You can scan a QR code. That's another whole topic. And that QR code will debit your WePay and automatically pay in real time the merchant from which you're paying. So if you go into a 7-Eleven, for example, they have a WeChat POS system. They scan, generates a QR code, you scan it, and lo and behold, it's all done. Now that's something that I think will come to New Zealand soon, because Chinese inbound travellers are much more akin to scanning a QR code and paying for stuff than using a credit card now. So it's something to be mindful of if you're thinking about this, particularly in New Zealand. E-commerce is changing. I love this topic. It's when I'm, as a Kiwi looking at the opportunity in this country, we produce so many tremendously great products. we do ourselves a disservice by not sharing those with the world, particularly China. Now, China has a propensity already for Kiwi brands. You know, they've got the kiwi fruits, they've got the wine, they've got the milk formula. There's so much more, okay? And I would encourage you to be innovative in your thinking. We're doing a Swiss air company. Can you believe that? They're selling air from the mountains. Go to South Island, we've got air. So think $25 a canister. Can you believe that? It's my client, so it's a great deal. Think about the products that are available to you in this country. Consider how do you brand it as a creative brand and then sell it to a consumer who is absolutely willing to trust our brands in this country, try our brands and talk about it. It's an e-commerce dream. Okay, so something to really consider. And I'm happy to brainstorm if you've got a crazy idea, because those are the ones that resonate. Air, God. So there you go. E-commerce. And you can just see this, you know, in New Zealand, we've tripled over the past decade. It's approximately $8.6 billion. It's a lot of money, and I need to see that grow because I think that's important for New Zealand. Yeah, I don't know, if you've been to China, you're going to see thousands of these little wagon things running around everywhere. And so what happens, your offices become like a warehouse, and particularly our office, we've got boxes arriving every day, every hour. And so what happens, you can order online products and have them delivered the same day, which is remarkable. And I think one of the limiting factors in New Zealand is the fact that our e-commerce infrastructure isn't to the same level. And in fact, there's a company now in China that you can order customized shoes before 11 o'clock in the morning. You know, you go to the website and you can pick the leather and the stitching and stuff. By that evening, it's arrived at your office. That's incredible. So that's the sort of innovations that we need to be looking at in this country. And I'm hoping, you know, lots of Chinese will come here and say, oh, this is an opportunity in this market. But the infrastructure needs to support it, because I'm sure the business idea makes a lot of sense. But it goes to give you a bit of a sense about the Chinese consumer's mind. Because Chinese want things that are brand orientated, Western in nature, although that's changing a lot, and they want to have customization. They want to be able to personalize objects as a sense of differentiation. So 5 years ago, when I'd market Bally or some of the luxury brands, Chinese bought it because they wanted to show it off. You know, they'd wear it to the clubs, they'd walk along the shops because the brand meant something. Now luxury is evolving and becoming much more sophisticated. So in some ways, the luxury brand doesn't have to be badged, it just has to be stylish and important because the level's gone up, particularly in Tier 1 cities. It's amazing how quickly that's changed. And the other thing, just as a takeaway, what we're finding in China now is the Western brands used to be successful because it was a Western brand. That's no longer the case. So we have this defined category now of an ingredients purchaser. So before, people would buy a supplement because it was from Australia or New Zealand or somewhere. Now people are buying supplements because it contains ingredients that are important to them. Now that's a pretty sophisticated purchaser in a couple of years. So it's no longer good enough just to be a Kiwi brand. You've got to think about ingredients, because that ingredients-led purchaser is the one that spends the most money in terms of premium purchases. So it just tells you that you can't sort of do a China strategy this year, implement it next year, and it's static. You've got to continually evolve your thinking and your approaches to that market. This is a complicated picture. So if you want to do cross-border, come and see me after the talk. And that's my parting thought. So thank you for your time, guys, and feel free to talk to me after the meeting.